And
Absolutely. Now's the big juicy part.
now is the big news of the weekend, Friday night. I'll just give a little backstory for how I experienced this. Friday night, I was watching Darren Aronofsky film Requiem for a Dream because I'm a really cultured individual, and it's very upsetting. It's a good movie, but very upsetting, stress-inducing. So after watching that, I'm kind of in a weird mental state. I look at my phone, and it's absolutely blowing up on Twitter with all the rumors about Laine and Dubois. And Elliot Friedman is saying that the package that the Jets would send to Columbus for Dubois is going to be Laine and Roslovic. And it's like it sure looks like the writing on the walls there. Darren Dreger's thinking like hashtag free Dreger. Like that. Well, I don't know what I'm talking about, but anyway, I was just such a discombobulated night. I was already stressed out. I could barely go to sleep because I was stressed about a potential line A trade. And then the next morning at what was it, 10 a.m. on Saturday, I'm chilling with my dad, and Drager tweets it and takes the hockey world by storm. Patrik Laine and Jack Roslovic traded to Columbus for Pierre-Luc Dubois and a third-round pick.
Absolutely crazy. Like there's we always knew that this time would come. We just didn't know when. It was just so shocking that we it happened this weekend. Um,
It
it's
escalated really, really quickly right after that infamous Dubois shift where he was like, to be frank, he was floating. He wasn't trying. Like he was absolutely miserable there the whole year, and it came to a head on that shift against Tampa Bay. And from there on, Jarmo Kekalainen knew he had to trade him, and trade him he did.
absolutely, yeah. They him and Tortorella weren't exactly getting along, and uh, there were talks about. I just saw some tweets on Twitter. What teams they were saying what their teams would have to give up for Dubois, and then all of a sudden, like there wasn't much talk about it, and then all of a sudden you hear Liney's the one going for him. Um, Crazy.
Yeah, like I gotta say, I saw the writing on the wall for this like a while ago. I remember like a month ago, I saw on Twitter a picture of Pierre-Luc Dubois with his dad, who is oddly enough assistant coach for the Manitoba Moose, and it was a picture with him, and he was wearing a Jets hat. And I was like, that's interesting. That'd be funny if he ended up being traded for Line. Just just a little thought. Like it made sense at the time, but there was no actual rumors of it at that moment.
Right.
Then before the season, when they're negotiating Dubois' contract, it comes out that Dubois wants out. And all they knew at the time was that part of it was because he wanted to be on a bigger hockey stage. But there's not much else was known at that time. And then the wheels were really starting turning there. I'm like, wow, this could legitimately happen. Then, you do some digging, you find out that last summer, Pierre-Luc Dubois spent a summer in Winnipeg with his dad during quarantine. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. This is a guy. This is even more of a fit. This is a guy whose dad knows a lot about the Jets organization. He's a coach. His parents live here. Pierre even spent a summer here during quarantine, and he would have seen a bit of the city then, got familiar with it, and that was all really, really interesting stuff. You hear some pundits starting connecting the dots. Is Laine going to get traded for Dubois? Is this something that's going to happen? It just at that point, it really just seemed like you weren't 100% sure, but so much seemed to line up that it seemed inevitable. And then, yeah, on Thursday night, Dubois has that shift. Friday night, trade talks escalate. Saturday morning, trade done. And here we are. And oh boy, was there ever a lot of different reactions from emotional fans on both teams.
Yes, it sparked a lot of conversation, a lot of emotions. You're right. It happened all so quick. But I want to hear your thoughts on the trade. Like, how do you think Laine and the Tortorella relationship will go? How do you think Laine will play in Columbus? Where does Dubois slot into our roster? Stuff like that. What do you think?
Our roster, we're supposed to be unbiased.
Oh, the Winnipeg Jets
And you're a
roster.
Sharks
Sorry.
fan. Wrong team, buddy. But obviously, yeah, you like the Jets too. So as for Laine to Columbus, like he provides some goal scoring they desperately need. You also look at Jack Roslovic. Like he's a guy that obviously the last year or two here, like he didn't want to be here. So he goes to Columbus. He goes to his hometown. I saw in his first press interview there that he was just
Wait,
infectious
here.
smile. Like he was just
You're from Winnipeg?
from Columbus.
No, I said you said here.
Ro-
You're from Winnipeg?
oh no, I guess uh, I messed up on English. But yeah, Roslovic was since he was already in Columbus, he didn't take long for him to pass the quarantine or whatever. So he already did his interview with the Columbus media yesterday, and he just couldn't stop smiling. He's from Columbus. His dad's a huge Blue Jackets fan. Like that was probably his dream. First kid to be drafted in the first round from Columbus. So as much as there is some shortcomings in Rostovic's game, he's going to be a much more motivated player there, and he'll have more opportunity, and he'll be able to play center. So that could actually be Rostovic could end up being the deciding piece in the trade, as the only other piece the Jets got aside from Dubois was a third round pick, and that's magic beans. You don't know. And as for Laine and Dubois, this is just my perspective on it. It would seem to me that you look at, in general, the kind of players that work under Tortorella. It would seem that Pierre-Luc Dubois would be a kind of player that would be a more stereotypical Tortorella player than Laine. And Laine has obviously gotten better in the two-way part of the game sometimes, but he still has his moments, his lapses, and I'm just curious to see if you'll see anything blow over between Torts and Laine. I almost think they are gonna butt heads a bit because well, him and Pierre-Luc did, and Pierre-Luc is overall a pretty decent two-way player. So I do think Torts and Laine will butt heads a bit, and we all know how much trouble uh, Columbus has had retaining talent and keeping star players there. So it should be interesting to see in the next 50 some odd games if they're able to keep him when Laine's contract's done at the end of the year and how he'll fit. What I'll say about Laine and how he played in that first game with the Jets, he looked great. He looked in that game against Calgary, 2 goals, overtime winner, 1 assist, really good pass to Kyle Connor on the assist. Breakaway goal was absolute snipe. Like he looked like he was working hard and he was confident in his game. And I think him going to Columbus, if he plays like that most of the year, I don't think there'll be too many problems. But as we know, in the playoffs when Pierre-Luc Dubois was playing the best hockey of his career and he was dominant against the Toronto Maple Leafs, he still had moments where Tortorella would absolutely blow up on him. So it's the kind of relationship that you don't know how exactly it's going to work out, but it'll be interesting to see. And the fate of the Columbus Blue Jackets as a franchise rests in that relationship. Patrik Laine is a restricted free agent at the end of the year, and John Tortorella's contract's up at the end of the year. So this relationship could actually really steer where the Blue Jackets go as a franchise.
That's very interesting. I'm curious to see how like Laine would react when or if Tortorella rips him a new one. You know, if he doesn't play the way he wants him to.
Yeah, Tortorella has no problem benching his players. Like if you don't play the way they expect to play, you're gonna sit on the bench. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how much money you make. That's how that organization is run, and that's how Tortorella runs his bench. So it'll be interesting to see how that relationship unfolds. And then obviously also you mentioned where does Pierre-Luc Dubois slot in the Jets lineup? That's something right now that I think is really up in the air. Upon Paul Maurice's first press conference, he mentioned how they've looked at moving Paul Stastny to the wing, but now with how well the Stastny Ehlers Cop line has performed, it almost makes you think, boy, you like the way they're rolling. You do not want to break them up. They've just been dominant. It makes you think maybe you start when you're just easing Dubois in at the start. Maybe you start him on the third line with maybe you do something like Lowry, Appleton, Dubois to start. But yeah, the way they're rolling, it's kind of up in there. But anyway, any way you look at it, the Jets' depth at center is just absolutely loaded now.
It is.
In the trade, maybe you lose a little. Well, no, you do. You lose talent in Laine, but Dubois he's a different player. He's one of the best young two-way centers in the league, and now you could have him on the second line pushing Mark Scheifele to be better, as we all know. The last few years, Scheifele has seemed to get real comfortable up on that first line, and some of his results have not been that good. They've been good points-wise, but you look at play driving and defensive analytics, they have taken a hit with Scheifele, and you hope having a center like Pierre could push him to be his best as well which Scheifele has not had a center below him pushing him for ice time in a very long time.
Right. And well, we all knew that Laine wouldn't want to sign long term. Like he wouldn't stay here forever. So, um, I think this is a good move
Same with
because
Rosovic. He was never going to stay.
no,
He wanted,
absolutely not.
obviously he wanted out too.
But it's good that we got a great player for
We,
this.
the Jets.
Yeah, that's it. It's good for
we
the
are
Jets.
we are a very professional, non-biased podcast.
Exactly. It's good for the Jets that they got a good player now for him because everyone knew that he wouldn't stay there long term. So, well, it's gonna be really cool to see how the Jets how the Jets will do with Dubois. So it'll be good.
They've only had one game with Laine, and without Laine or Dubois, the Jets have been doing pretty well with a record of 4-2 since Laine was hurt.
That's
So
pretty good.
when he's in the lineup, he'll be curious to see where he slots in and how well the Jets will do because they're doing well without him.
That's right. And yeah, hopefully Hellbuck can stay on his game and play like a Vezina Trophy winner.
Had two less than stellar games, but yeah, with the goal support he's been getting has been a problem. But the Jets are not going to be scoring 4 or 5 goals a game the whole year, so he'll need to be better. But I'm confident he will. I think the 3-day break will be really big for him and a lot of the Jets players. Like obviously, the last few games, the Scheifele Wheeler Connor line does not look good, and it's pretty clear why. They're playing 25. Scheifele is playing 25 minutes a game, which I don't understand. I don't think Maurice should be playing him that much.
No, he's playing
I don't.
defenseman minutes.
Yeah, it's literally top defenseman minutes. You need to give those guys a rest. The 3-day break will help, but I would ride that Stastny line a lot more. And you have Scheifele and Wheeler. You have the top line in and around 20 minutes, maybe 21, and then you could ride the second line a lot harder because the results they've been putting up. And then you even look at the Lowry, Perreault, Appleton line and how well they've been playing. You could bump those players' minutes up. I think it'll be important that they really spread out the minutes more, especially when Dubois comes in. It'll become even easier to spread out the minutes. So I think the 3-day break will be big, and hopefully Maurice eases up on the Scheifele ice time.
Yeah.
But back to the Laine trade for a second. It's interesting. You hear a lot of the talk, specifically about the report by that Finnish reporter. Oh, I forget his name, but you see the article. Did you see the headlines? About how the Jets' leadership in Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele are essentially tyrants, and they drove Laine out of Winnipeg, out of just jealousy and all those other things, and that the Jets locker room is just so toxic.
I also heard rumors along with that Wheeler and Laine didn't really get along. So yeah.
Yeah, it's you just look at that and obviously it's no secret that the last few years the Jets there's been rumors about their locker room and it being split, and there has to be some truth there, or else it wouldn't be talked about as much as it is. But to say that Wheeler and Scheifele are just so toxic, and they talked about behind Laine's back, and they did everything to get him to want to leave. I just don't see that. For one, I think Wheeler can be really competitive, and he's even admitted that he's taken it too far with how competitive he's been. But he admitted that going into the 1920 year, and he's been saying how he's trying to be better with that. And what was one of the other quotes from that report, that Wheeler was jealous that Laine could potentially be as popular as other Finn Teemu Selanne. It's just like, that's just not the kind of guy Wheeler is. I don't think he cares anything about. He doesn't seem like a jealous individual. He just seems focused and driven. And maybe when he took that a bit too far is where him and Laine would add a few hiccups. But even in Wheeler's interview, he said there would be moments where he just got frustrated, that he maybe would like to go back and change. But for the most part, him and Laine had a great relationship. It was positive. and for the most part, he coddled him, especially like when you look at a lot more and how Wheeler was brought up in the league. And I think those things are all true. Like, look, for example, remember when Laine absolutely sniped it on his own net, and there's that. Then there's the clip of afterwards Wheeler like really trying to motivate him here, and really trying to be good to him. So obviously, I think there is some truth to the Jets locker room having some problems. Is it as bad as the Finnish media makes it out to be? I don't think so. At the end of the day, um, personality wise, whatever, there was just something there where Patrik Laine and the Winnipeg Jets just wasn't a fit. Even Cheveldayoff said on the ice, he thought that, but like him playing with Scheifele last year when Wheeler had to play center, that it wasn't a fit. So however you want to break it down, whether it's personalities in the room not quite meshing, the opportunity that Laine obviously wanted on the first line, where the Jets' depth got in the way. There's just things where he felt he needed to move on, and that's what happened. I'm just glad in all the post game interviews, more between Maurice, between Wheeler, between all the Jets players that talked about him, and then between Patrik Laine himself. You could have kind of kicked him on his way out, and Laine could have said, "Oh yeah, Wheeler sucks" or something like. But they all had nothing but respect for all parties involved. Laine said that he thought him and Wheeler had a good relationship, and same with him and Maurice. All parties had nothing but good things to say. On the other side of the trade with Pierre-Luc, there really seemed to be some bad blood between his teammates, the organization, and him. Uh, I think Jarmo Kekalainen was quoted as saying, when asked about if he was bittersweet about having to deal Pierre-Luc, a player they drafted and developed and believed in, and he said, "Not bittersweet at all. Uh, we would have given up a lot to trade up for that number 2 to draft Laine at the draft." So he's almost kicking him on the way out. He's like, "No, it's not bittersweet. Glad he's gone." And then you could tell the way when Columbus players were asked about it that a lot of them were pissed off at Dubois, which him not giving a reason as to why he wanted to be traded, it makes sense. But it was just seemed like a really negative situation with Dubois going out, and a lot of his teammates hated him. It seemed like his management wasn't too fond of him. And after the trade, John Tortorella seemed really, really happy that was all over with, which you can't blame. But also, it's like you could just tell that those players wanted Dubois gone, and they're glad he's gone, and they probably don't wish him well. So it's at least nice on the Laine Jets side of things that they were all respectful and they all had positive things to say. And actually, like even Wheeler, like they all seemed sad to see him go. Like they were sad to see their teammate go, and they wish him nothing but the best. So that's about as good as you could ask for in terms of a departure and what the players were saying. Columbus side of it, they did not get that. It got pretty ugly.
Yeah, and hopefully he can. Well, hopefully he's now escaped from that, and that. Well, he'll for sure have a warm welcome in Winnipeg, and I think he'll have great relationships there. We'll see how Laine does uh, on that part of it with Columbus, but
Yeah. Yeah, with Pierre-Luc in Winnipeg, for whatever the reason was that he wanted out, which he won't fully disclose, one thing you knew, he was miserable there. Like so miserable so that it affected his play. Like he needed to be out of there. And say what you want about that shift against Tampa Bay, where he wasn't trying, but I think coming into Winnipeg, he's gonna be an extremely motivated player. Knowing how long this probably has went on with Columbus and how long he's probably wanted out or been thinking about wanting out, going to a team that he's excited to play for, like you saw in his post trade interview with Jets media, you couldn't wipe the smile off his face, asking about the city, asking about the team, asking about the being able to live with his parents. Like he just seems ecstatic to be a Winnipeg Jet, and having a star player coming here, and his one of his quotes in his interview was saying, "It already feels like home." I think that's really promising for the prospect of him re-signing, and it's early, but I really do think Pierre-Luc Dubois will re-sign, and I think he's going to be a Winnipeg Jet for a long time. it's not often you see a player be that absolutely ecstatic about being a Jet, and I think he really genuinely likes a lot about the city and about the opportunity with this team.
Absolutely, it's exciting for him. I think he's gonna do very well with the Winnipeg Jets. Was that all that you had on this trade?
Oh, just one more little thing that I thought was really funny. Do you ever you heard of the grocery store DeLuca's on Portage?
Oh yes, yeah, I've eaten from there. It's good.
Pierre-Luc Dubois had a quote when he was talking about the city. He's like, when he was talking about when he was quarantining here last year before the NHL qualifying round. He's like, yeah, I rode bikes with my sister and it seemed really beautiful, and I really like DeLuca's, so I'm really excited to go back there. So I guess when he was here, that was his grocery store he really liked. And then now apparently DeLuca's is going to come out with a Pierre-Luc Dubois inspired like pre-made cheese board. So with all his favorites that he had while he was here last year, so I'm definitely going to want to try that. That's going to be really interesting.
That's
And yeah, I just
awesome.
thought that was I thought that was really funny. Just some random grocery store he had to get in. He had to plug in there to say how much he liked it.
That's awesome. I definitely have to try that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, it's especially funny because well, pretty much literally the summer that he discovered it, my family discovered it, and we started going there every now and then. So I just thought that was really funny. But as for my thoughts on that trade, that about I could probably talk about it a lot longer, but we have other things to get to. So I think that'll end off for my Laine Dubois trade perspective.